what I do know is that in 2005, first in 1947, then in 1982, then in 1995, then in 2005, they've had opportunities to make something of themselves. They've had opportunities to make a Palestinian state, to live with dignity, to live in freedom, to live however you want to live. But they, at their bottom line, they refuse to live with Israel. They don't accept any of this. They don't accept Tel Aviv. They don't accept Jaffa. They don't accept Haifa. They don't accept Israel. So I agree with you. I don't know that there is a solution. I think what happened over the past 20 years is that we, the Israelis, right, realized that we've just been burned time and time and time and time again, and we're sick of offering them things now. We're sick of it, and you know, what do you want us to do? Every time we offer you something, it gets worse for us, and you make more violence and more problems for us. Until there is a huge change of Palestinian leadership, until there's a new generation, but they don't let it. They kill people who are against them. That's the problem, right? Anybody who speaks up and anybody who tries to stand up to Hamas or the PA, anybody who tries to do something that is more constructive, they get killed, literally. They can't speak out. They can't speak, and
but the PA seems to cooperate with Israel in many ways.
Certainly more than Hamas, but Mahmoud Abbas is always in Arabic talking incitement, always talking, Holocaust denial. He's always saying things to his people that are just like Arafat. Arafat did this for decades. Arafat in the English press, he was very, very charismatic. He was very, personable, and in the English press, he would always talk in a very, very, pragmatic, charismatic way. But then in the Arab press and in talking to his people, he would just rile them up for violence and murder, and it's literally been the way it's been since the 1920s.
I've heard the same criticism of certain Israeli leaders that when they appear on CNN, they are very affable and reasonable, but then in the Hebrew press, they are much more aggressive and much more violent.
So you'd have to show that to me. I don't know. Show that to me. I would like to see it. But again, I'm not a big fan of Bibi. I'm not a supporter of Bibi. I'm not like a I don't. But I don't know what else we're supposed to do at this point. I don't know. These are people. I don't know if you saw it just yesterday. It's going around the video. It's going on. The same guy, that Hamas guy, the spokesman who goes on all the news shows, and he said, we're going to do this again. October 7th, October 10th, October 1,000,000th. We're going to keep on doing this every opportunity we get. That's literally what he says. So, to me, the tragedy is that all the liberal-minded people like yourself, like Kim Iverson, like Katie Halpert, like all these people that are, liberal-minded, and you really have the best interest of the Palestinian people in mind, and you really see it as a tragedy, which I do too. It's a tragedy. It's awful. It's awful. However, putting pressure on us to give up our lives is not going to work. They're not going to do it. Israel is not going to commit suicide over here. We're not going to.
But that's not what we're asking. What we're asking
yes, it is by telling us to make a ceasefire, telling us to leave the West Bank. Right? Leaving Gaza was suicidal. It was. Right? We did something suicidal in order to try to make peace and show the world, look, we're willing to do something here. We're willing to try to do something. And of course, it was controversial. Of course, it was painful and difficult. But we did it. And look what we got in return. So, and now you're going to tell us to do that in the West Bank? You're going to tell us to do that? Why in the world would we do that? Until we would see a change amongst the Palestinians, until we would see a change amongst their leadership of people who are actually talking sensible, actually talking about peace, actually talking about living side by side, and not sponsoring terrorists, not paying people for committing acts against Israel and getting shot or going to prison, and then they get a stipend for their family for the rest of their life. Not all of these things are contrary to peace. They choose violence at every turn. Every turn of a possible peace, they choose violence, starting from 1948. Literally,
can we talk a little bit about the West Bank, because I'm much more familiar with the West Bank than with Gaza. I was never in Gaza. I was
so the West Bank also until the first Intifada in 1984, 85. Right, I don't remember exactly when it started. 83, 88, maybe 87. Until the first Intifada, the West Bank, they could come and go. If they wanted to drive from Ramallah to the beach, they could go. They wanted to go to Tel Aviv, to Jaffa, they could go. What happened is they started an intifada. They started terrorizing Israel. They started blowing themselves up and blowing up buses and shootings and killings. So Israel said, I'm not going to let this go on. I'm just not going to let it happen. And they have to, yes, have checkpoints, and yes, search them, and yes. And now, do they go overboard? Perhaps they do. And are there
I
individual
think they
soldiers?
do. I really think they do. I was there. I mean,
I understand, but you're
what I
coming
saw
in.
was,
You're
sorry,
coming
what I
in 2009, right? You said
yeah,
you were there in 2009. You're
yeah.
coming in after decades and decades of us trying to deal with them, trying to work with them, trying to have peace deals with them, and every single time they respond with violence. In 2009, Hamas already took over the West Bank. They already purged anybody who wasn't on their team violently, right? You know this if you know
Well,
the
this I know.
in 2007, right? So yes, by 2000, the second Intifada had already happened, and by 2000, and the wall was already being constructed. Thank God, because it protected us from suicide bombers. And yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible that the wall cuts into people's fields and it cuts through people's homes and all. It's terrible, but we're not going to just let them blow us up. We're not going to do that. We're
That I get. Okay, that I get. But in the West, or at least with people like me in the West, there's this perception that Israel breeds terrorism by the way they treat Palestinians.
But that's exactly what I'm trying to
Their
show you, that
reaction
going
is,
back to 1929, we've been dealing with the terrorism. This is what the West doesn't understand. You're coming very late into the game. So you're looking at our response and you're saying, oh, it's so heavy-handed, it's so strong, it's so bad. They were doing this from the beginning. They were doing this from the beginning. It started with a war of extermination. It wasn't terrorists, it was armies. These people's grandparents were part of the armies that tried to destroy us. And that's it. That's their only way of being since then. If there would be people that would be actually looking for peace, if there would be, and they did it with Arafat. They tried to make a peace deal with him. The Oslo, they tried. You do your research. They tried. They offered him everything, and he walked away from the table and started the Intifada. There's zero chance for peace with the leadership that the Palestinians have. And now I agree with you. Now Israel, after decades and decades and decades of there being peaceful governments and governments that want, we're done. We're done with it. And now, yes, you're right. Netanyahu is in power because that's what happens after decades of being burnt like this. So yeah, it's a harder problem than it's been. I definitely agree. And he's not going to be in power forever. I think he's going to fall out of power, hopefully, as a result of everything that just happened. But I don't think we're going to get a peace government in power. I don't think it's going to happen because we've been burned so many times. Unless we're going to see something different. Like Gaza was the last straw. 2005 was the last straw. This was such a difficult thing to do. Such a difficult thing that they literally, the army went in there and literally pulled people from their homes and pulled them onto trucks and
I remember this.
took them away. And this is what we got in response. And the world has no sympathy for us. And the world, still telling us it's our fault.
Well, yeah, my timeline is exploding with the most horrific images of babies, children torn apart.
It's terrible. Yes, it's terrible. And Hamas is to blame. They knew exactly.
I don't agree. I don't agree.
So
I agree with everything you say, and then this current response to what happened there, that no, I can't accept this almost indiscriminate bombing and killing 8,000 people in the space of a few weeks.
First of all, I don't know what the numbers are. I have no idea. I honestly don't accept.
I accept these numbers. I think thousands have died.
I think thousands have died. Yes, I agree. Thousands have died. I don't know that I accept 8,000, and I'm not just because I want to be oblivious, but I don't trust that they have to say every opportunity that they have to make us look terrible and make us look bad. This is what they do. So I
agree that's part of the strategy to make you look as evil as possible. But they do have several opportunities to do that.
Well, I understand.
If Israel bombs a refugee camp and claims to kill one Hamas leader and then hundreds are killed and wounded, I mean, is that really the best a modern nation like Israel can do at that point?
If you've got a better solution, we're all ears. But after what happened this time,
it may sound absurd to you, but do you know Jocko Willink?
Yes.
Yeah. I follow him a little bit because I like his ideas about discipline and stuff. He's this big macho and he has combat experience. But even he says that this is, from a military point of view, this doesn't make much sense to bomb them. He was for creating safe havens for women and children, and that would actually hurt Hamas. You take
They
away
won't
their
let
human
them. They
shields.
won't let them go to safe havens.
Mm.
They are bombing the roads out of the town. They won't let them.